In early 2024, internet celebrity JoJo Siwa started teasing a rebrand. A former child star known for her sparkly bows, kid-friendly YouTube channel, and a wildly successful stint on Nickelodeon, JoJo was on the cusp of turning 20 years old and seemed ready to enter a more mature phase of her career. But as JoJo began promoting her new era, fans started noticing that everything from her content to her costumes to the sound bites that she was giving on red carpets felt curated with a specific intention in mind: to shock the internet and garner attention, for better or for worse. Soon, JoJo faced allegations of baiting her audience for engagement and the media for headlines. As a result, the authenticity of JoJo's new mature era came into question. Was JoJo Siwa really ready to break free of her child star baggage, or was she actually using this opportunity to drum up more publicity for herself through a somewhat new online practice called Ragebait? This is an exploration into the steep rise and proliferation of Ragebait content, from innocuous celebrity PR plays like JoJo Siwa's to more insidious strategies in tech and politics intended to keep our digital ecosystem hostile and, possibly more importantly, divided. From Centennial World, I'm Lauren Meisner, and this is Infinite Scroll, a podcast about internet culture, the creator economy, and how social media is shaping Gen Z. Welcome back to Infinite Scroll, everyone. First, before we get into today's episode, I wanted to say such a huge thank you to all of you guys for being so supportive of our sponsors. You know, we had a big run of Jose Cuervo sponsorship for 10 weeks, and then last week we announced our Brita sponsorship, which is a year-long partnership, and I'm so excited. It's our first ever year-long partnership. And the comments that you guys post every time we have a sponsorship, a new sponsorship, anything like that is so funny. It's so engaging, and it just goes to show what we always talk about. I mean, kind of on this podcast, but also just to brands and to potential advertisers. Like, if you work with independent media, if you work with niche creators, that is going to get you the engagement and like the buy-in that every brand is looking for in their campaigns. And I think all of our campaigns so far from the last 12 months have been testament to that. So thank you guys so much for being so supportive and so excited every time we have a new campaign, a new sponsorship. It honestly makes our job so much easier because it means that we can keep going. It means that brands are seeing proof of concept, they're seeing good results, and that means that this can all keep going. Anyways, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Please star rate us on Spotify. We are trying to get to 1,000 Spotify star ratings by what deadline? I don't know, but we're trying to get to it. Please sign up to our newsletter called Infinite Scroll. On Fridays, we round up the 5 biggest think pieces from the internet that week. And also please follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm at Lauren Meisner _ on Instagram, and I'm at Lauren N. Meisner for my middle name, Nicole, on TikTok. I do more like behind the scenes of the business of this podcast stuff on both of those platforms, and I will be posting even more of that in the coming year. So definitely give me a follow. It's no secret that people online are often angry, whether it's the anonymity that the internet allows or the sense of protection that comes with being behind a screen. Social media is a hotbed for hostility. Users can be more intense, more reactive, and let's be honest, a bit more ruthless than they might be face to face. For a long time, this sort of rage was mostly a reaction. In the early 2010s, YouTube videos would be flooded with hate comments and dislikes. Baby by Justin Bieber might ring a bell as one of the most disliked videos back in the day. In the TikTok era, you'll find a similar phenomenon with comment sections brimming with snarky comments. But all of this anger seemed to be coming from users, ordinary people letting out their frustrations, not necessarily the celebrities or content creators themselves. Recently, though, this dynamic has shifted, with more and more creators turning this anger into an opportunity. They're not just ignoring the rage, they're tapping into it, using it to their advantage. Enter Ragebait. Now, you've probably heard of clickbait, sensationalized headlines or video titles that encourage and mislead users into clicking on something that they didn't necessarily intend to. Think of Ragebait as the angrier version designed to provoke outrage and get people talking, sharing, and engaging with content, even if it's in a heated or negative way. Quote, Ragebait isn't just common online anymore. It's taking over the internet and changing the way we view content in the process, C.T. Jones writes for the Rolling Stone. Many early forms of internet content were Ragebait adjacent, meant to stop people in their tracks long enough for them to have an emotional response and then engage. But in the influencer era, a new character has emerged. The Ragebait influencers. I'm sure we've all come across Ragebait creators at some point while scrolling through social media, maybe even without realizing it. These creators post content designed to frustrate viewers so much that it compels them to engage. Whether it's sharing a cringeworthy staged interaction, slipping in an obvious spelling mistake in a caption, deliberately misusing a product, or making a wildly outrageous statement, the goal is the same: to provoke a reaction. In this world, any engagement is good engagement. Obviously, this isn't exactly new. As Tanya Chen notes for Business Insider, quote, for as long as cable news punditry has been around, people have weaponized anger to captivate audiences. But this trend has intensified with the normalization of algorithms and the rise of short-form video, which make it easier for internet users to take information out of context and push creators to cater to the attention economy. As TikTok has democratized internet fame, with nearly every internet user now chasing virality, Ragebait has become increasingly common. Google Trends data reveals that the term Ragebait saw little to no searches until the end of 2022, but it experienced a huge surge in interest early last year and has continued to rise steadily since then. As for why this is the case, C.T. Jones makes the claim that this is partly because content is often taken out of context when reshared across different platforms. We've discussed this before, especially after the boots and a slicked back bun trend went viral last year, where Andrew Tate shared a clip of employees participating in the TikTok trend on X. Even though today's viral landscape feels siloed, where we're all locked into our own algorithms, it's easier than ever for content to spread across platforms that the creator may not have intended. And the downside? Videos that might clearly be ragebait on one platform can be taken completely seriously on another, with hate being directed to creators at a greater intensity. Quote, as apps like X and Facebook become shells of their former selves, cross-platform posting means ragebait influencers can often be thrust in front of new eyes and have absolutely no context, and simply engage further. With more social apps involved, the bait doesn't just work, it thrives. Jones continues. Now, the opportunities for cross-platform virality are just one of the reasons why Ragebait has taken off in the digital space. When we step back and consider how much the digital landscape has changed and how volatile it's become, it's no surprise that Ragebait has been increasingly normalized. We talk a lot about X on this podcast, but it really is the perfect example. While users were already sending hate and fighting on Twitter, especially within Stan communities, things took a turn when Elon Musk took over. He often feeds into Ragebait, responding to problematic tweets with one-word replies, seemingly to amplify them. As the platform's owner, Musk sets the tone for the space, and his actions have undoubtedly contributed to a more hostile environment. While this behavior hasn't been labeled as ragebait on a widespread scale, Musk would understand the impact of these tweets, especially given his role in shaping the platform's culture. In a roundabout way, X has also encouraged the rise of ragebait on other platforms, particularly Threads. Reports suggest that Threads, Meta's competitor to Twitter, has been capitalizing on ragebait to boost engagement. Although Threads quickly amassed over 100 million users after its launch in 2023 and reached 175 million monthly users by mid-last year, it has struggled to carve out a unique culture that draw users in. Instead, many former Twitter users are sticking with X or migrating to other platforms like Blue Sky before considering Threads. In an episode of Wired's Gadget Lab podcast published late last year, journalists Lauren Good and Michael Calore discussed how the key to virality on Threads is, quote, to ask a ridiculous question that enrages your followers so much, they just have to chime in to answer you, mock you, or berate you. In other words, posting rage bait. They also spoke with Business Insider senior correspondent Katie Natopoulos about her personal experiment with rage bait on Threads. She theorized that replies, rather than reposts, are the driving force behind what goes viral and gets shown on feeds on the platform. Quote, I had noticed that the Threads algorithm seemed weird, Natopoulos explains. The kind of stuff I was seeing that seemed to get a lot of comments was often people asking for advice in describing domestic problems like family problems, parenting problems, relationships, and asking for advice. And they would get tons and tons of comments. So I experimented with posting these social etiquette kinds of questions, asking for advice, but in the persona of an incredibly stupid person. But Threads isn't the only Twitter competitor that is using rage bait. There have been recent reports that Blue Sky is dabbling with this kind of strategy to boost engagement. According to Ryan Broderick in a recent edition of the Garbage Day newsletter, there has been a, quote, invasion of Blue Sky disagree bots. In an effort to build its user base and boost engagement, the platform appears to be populated with bots whose sole purpose seems to be confrontational. Quote, Blue Sky is awash right now in reply bots that basically just fight with you about whatever you post. I didn't notice them right away because most Blue Sky users also act this way, Broderick explains. At this stage, the true purpose of these bots remains unclear, but Broderick suggests they may be part of a broader experiment to determine what kind of engagement tactics work best on Blue Sky. While rage bait and engagement farming invites hate, platforms, creators, and users who lean into it appear unfazed by the negative messaging. Instead, they leverage it to grow their followings, build their presence, and drive engagement. Social media platforms arguably play the most significant role, as their algorithms are designed to prioritize engagement above all else. And for these creators operating on these platforms, pursuing fame, influence, and virality is the ultimate goal, with rage bait offering a quick path to achieving it. To truly understand how prolific this kind of content has become, it is worth looking at some of the most viral examples of rage bait. Aside from all of the Podcast Bros and Manosphere creators, more on them in a bit, one of the most recent examples of a creator engaging in seemingly intentional rage bait was YouTuber Nikacado Avocado. A mukbang creator, Nicholas Perry, who goes by Nikacado Avocado on social media, built a following of over 4 million from sharing videos of himself eating massive amounts of food. Over the course of about 8 years, his viewers watched as Nick engaged in both clickbait and rage bait practices, gaining weight for the sake of his content, sharing intimate details of his health and sex life, having turbulent meltdowns on camera, and more. On a 2019 episode of the now defunct Dish with Trish podcast, Nick told Trisha Paytas, quote, "The viewers like when I'm upset. They like when I'm crying. They like when I'm hyper." He said before admitting that he intentionally makes his video titles, quote, clickbaity. That is until last year when Nick shocked the internet, revealing that at least some of his content had been a lie. In September 2024, Nick uploaded a video titled 2 Steps Ahead, in which he revealed he had lost 250 pounds. The catch? He did so in secret, only posting pre-recorded videos for 2 entire years while he lost the weight. Calling this the quote, greatest social experiment of his life, Nick's revelation was met with mixed reactions. Many noting that this social experiment is evidence that Nick was intentionally exploiting sensitive points such as weight, health, and mental health for rage bait, to gain views and to make money. Another creator who was frequently accused of creating rage bait content is TikToker Winta Zesu. A 22-year-old influencer from New York City, Winta became one of the fastest growing rage bait creators of the last year. Winta grew her platform of nearly 900,000 by posting skits and storytime videos about situations that probably didn't happen. Though a lot of Winta's content could be considered satirical, the creator admitted to the Rolling Stone in 2024 that she intentionally does create controversial content for views. Quote, I realized that videos really blow up when there's like controversial things going on in the video, she said in the interview. When someone asks me what kind of content I do, I usually say skits, or if I'm talking about those restaurant videos, I say satire. I guess it is Ragebait too, but I don't know why I don't say that. I don't really like the term. One of Winta's most viral moments came in March 2024, when she claimed that she was chosen to be a backup dancer for Tyla. In the video, which saw nearly 29 million views, Winta spliced together clips from what appeared to be two different videos, one of Tyla dancing and cheering at an intimate gathering, and another of Winta quote-unquote auditioning for Tyla. The spliced clips make it seem like Tyla is cheering on Winta's dance moves. But there are noticeable differences between the venues where these videos seem to take place. The comment section is filled with thousands of questions from users wondering if this is real or fake. Because who would intentionally lie on TikTok about something that is so easy to disprove? Fast forward 10 months later, and Winta finally admitted the video was a hoax. While participating in the creator confessions trend prior to the US TikTok ban, where TikTokers revealed ways they had lied to their audience over the years, Winta made a video saying, quote, Tyla never hired me as her backup dancer, confirming for users that her most viral moment was fabricated to farm for engagement. While much of this rage bait may seem harmless, by capitalizing on shock value moments and trivial frustrations online, there are dangerous ways in which it is impacting the digital sphere. Consider the manosphere. For those unfamiliar, the manosphere is an umbrella term for various online men's rights movements that share common views on gender dynamics. We've covered the manosphere before on this podcast, like in our Looks Maxing episode last year. From incels to pickup artists to gamergaters, the manosphere is far-reaching. At its core, however, is the belief that men are unfairly treated for various reasons, with many of these groups formed in opposition to female empowerment and the rise of feminism. While men may not initially stumble upon these groups because they are misogynistic, it's easy to internalize these narratives due to the way they're presented. Quote, the manosphere appeals to its audience because it speaks to the very real lives of young men under the factors: romantic rejection, alienation, economic failure, loneliness, and a dim vision of the future. Academics Ben Rich and Eva Buljaka write for The Conversation. The major problem lies in its diagnosis of the cause of male disenfranchisement, which fixates on the impacts of feminism. While there are various reasons that lead men to follow these extremely misogynistic and dangerous belief systems, none of which are valid to be honest, Ragebait is a powerful tool in stirring them up and drawing them in. Some of the manosphere's most prolific creators post Ragebait with the goal of making it go viral. Nick Fuentes is one such example. We've discussed him before, but for those unfamiliar, Nick is a 26-year-old far-right political pundit and live streamer. He's been deplatformed from platforms like YouTube for his controversial and dangerous views. Nevertheless, last year he went viral after celebrating the outcome of the 2024 US presidential election. He posted a disturbing phrase to his 400,000 followers on X. Quote, "Your body, my choice, forever." This tweet twisted the pro-choice slogan, "My body, my choice," to attack women's reproductive rights. In retaliation, women across the internet doxed Nick, sharing his personal information online, with one woman even showing up at his home to confront him. If you're interested in the ethics of doxing and how this situation unfolded, feel free to check out our doxing episode from last year. But in terms of Ragebait, this post was undeniably designed to provoke, and it quickly spread across the internet, amplifying Nick's harmful message. While most viewers may recognize it as Ragebait, there are dangerous consequences for those who don't. For instance, some users might believe this messaging, seeing the post virality as confirmation and legitimacy. Some Reddit users have also argued that the strong reactions from women, many of which are entirely valid in a case like this, can pull young men deeper into the manosphere pipeline, with many people within this group dismissing these comments as irrational and incorrect. Extensive research has shown that people often perceive comments from women as emotional and are less likely to take them seriously or believe them. As academics Teresa Frasca, Emily Leskinen, and Leah Warner have noted, quote, "Emotion has a history of being associated with femininity and irrational, disorganized behavior, with women being seen as dispositionally and therefore chronically emotional and irrational." As Ragebait serves as a tool to draw social media users into the manosphere, it extends to the broader right-wing space. In 2022, The Atlantic reported that ragebaiting was a prevalent tactic among right-wing online commentators to boost engagement. The article, written by Molly Jong-Fast, highlighted how culture war tropes are designed to incite rage and anger among users online. Quote, "Rage farming is not the same as an inherently polarizing algorithm, but it's certainly a way for the right to game these technology platforms' relationship with engagement," she writes. "It is the product of a perfect storm of fuckery, an unholy melange of algorithms and anxiety." The X account Libs of TikTok serves as a prime example. Operated by Chaya Raichik, the account curates and reposts progressive views from TikTok onto another platform, seemingly framing them as rage bait. Quote, "The account's impact is deep and far-reaching. Its content is amplified by high-profile media figures, politicians, and right-wing influencers," Taylor Lorenz writes for The Washington Post in 2022. Its tweets reach millions, with influence spreading far beyond its more than 648,000 Twitter followers. Libs of TikTok has become an agenda setter in right-wing online discourse. Of course, these tactics are not confined to one side of the political spectrum, nor do they have to be political at all. Seemingly neutral or unaffiliated channels can also engage in ragebait to drive engagement. For example, YouTube channels like Jubilee sometimes fall into this category. For those unfamiliar, Jubilee is run by a Los Angeles-based media company founded by entrepreneur Jason Y. Lee, with the mission to, quote, "provoke understanding and create human connection" across the political spectrum. They produce various video formats, such as Surrounded, where a person, often a public figure, is surrounded by and debates several opponents, and Middle Ground, where two opposing sides engage in dialogue to find common ground. The channel, though long established, gained significant traction during the 2024 presidential election, featuring videos with right-wing commentators such as Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, alongside progressive TikTok debater Dean Withers. Some of the most popular content from this period included videos like "Can one woke teen survive 20 Trump supporters?" and "Can 25 liberal college students outsmart one conservative?" Take Surrounded, for example. In this format, a representative from one side of the argument faces multiple opponents from the other side. The catch is that opponents are voted out by people who share their opinion, adding a competitive element. Unfortunately, opponents tend to be voted out when the participant seems to reach some form of agreement. As a result, this setup tends to limit opportunities for meaningful discussion and dialogue, making it extremely frustrating for the viewer. Despite Jubilee's presumed goal, some internet users have pointed out that the editing and format of these videos seem to exploit those gotcha moments, effectively transforming them into a platform of rage bait. But ragebait doesn't just limit effective communication in the digital space. It builds animosity between social media users who may hold different opinions or identify with different sides of the political spectrum. Social media is already becoming increasingly siloed, especially as platforms rely more on algorithms and we continue to fall into specific information bubbles. As a result, we have less context about what others outside our bubble are feeling and discussing. Ragebait intensifies this issue by making us less inclined to hear opposing views, ultimately deepening divisions and fostering greater discord. On top of this, ragebait makes it easy to spread misinformation. Sensationalist or emotionally charged commentary is often stitched and duetted on platforms like TikTok, frequently taken out of context. While this may be exactly what the creator intended, it can easily misrepresent a topic or an issue. Though it's human nature to react, The emotional response might encourage users to share content without critically considering the issue, sometimes without even realizing the content is rage bait, furthering the cycle and riling up more social media users. Ultimately, the focus on engagement at any cost fosters a toxic environment where outrage becomes currency and genuine discourse is often overshadowed by hostility. In this context, the ends justify the means, even if those means involve fracturing online communities, promoting divisiveness, and contributing to an increasingly hostile digital landscape. Though many of us recognize the issues with rage bait and can identify it when we come across it, users can't help but feed into it. There isn't a single explanation for this, but thinking of rage bait in terms of hate watching offers valuable insight. Hate watching, for those unfamiliar, involves watching content you find bad or perhaps cringe, often for the enjoyment of mocking or criticizing it. In a piece for HuffPost, Brittany Wong outlines a list of possible reasons why people love to hate watch, one being that it provides an opportunity to criticize people, ideas, and themes openly. As J.R. Illigan, a clinical psychologist, explains to Vice, humans are, quote, naturally voyeuristic. So it's no surprise that we are urged to react to certain content. Rage bait evokes a similar response to hate watching because it often makes viewers feel a sense of superiority. Engaging with content that is designed to provoke often leaves us feeling critical, feeding into this feeling of superiority. However, unlike hate watching, which can bring about an arguably twisted sense of enjoyment, rage bait elicits anger and frustration, as we have already established by this point. Now, while we're obviously not a health and wellness podcast, I'm sure we've all experienced a moment when anger caused our hearts to race and adrenaline to spike. This can activate our fight or flight response, creating a sense of urgency. In this heightened state, anger can push us to take action, whether that's confronting someone or standing up against an injustice. While it can be dangerous, anger also has the potential to be a powerful motivator, encouraging us to engage rather than step away. And in a social media landscape where attention is the ultimate currency, anger might just be more effective than hate when driving engagement. The term attention economy was first introduced by American political scientist Herbert A. Simon in the 1960s. He framed attention as a scarce resource, presenting it as an economic problem. While this concept might initially seem disconnected from today's digital landscape, it has become central to how marketers, social media strategists, and journalists understand the internet. In this ecosystem, both corporations and creators are locked into constant competition for our focus. Quote, "This economy, which sees our focus as a finite resource to be captured and monetized, has fundamentally altered how we connect," Kurt Steinhorst writes for Forbes. "It poses significant challenges that threaten to undermine the quality of our attention, our relationships, and our understanding of the world." This attention economy is only intensified by the proliferation of short-form videos across social media. As we scroll our TikTok For You page, Instagram feeds, and YouTube Shorts, we are constantly being bombarded by bite-sized content designed to capture our attention. It's addictive, offering instant gratification by providing entertainment or information without taking too much of our time. Whether this is beneficial or harmful is a separate debate, but it has undeniably contributed to the normalization of emotion-driven content like rage bait. Videos that provoke strong emotional reactions, whether rage, frustration, or even appreciation, provide the dopamine hit we've come to expect from scrolling on our phones. Though rage bait is intentionally inflammatory, this type of content isn't going away anytime soon. Rage bait thrives in the current digital landscape, driven by algorithms where provoking outrage captures attention and boosts engagement. Creators and social media platforms alike feed into this phenomenon, prioritizing divisive and polarizing content that keep us hooked to fuel virality. With this understanding, keeping a critical eye on the content we consume is more important than ever. While some rage bait content appears to be obvious, it's the inconspicuous content, like an offensive tweet or a confrontational comment, that threatens to keep our digital landscape fragmented and hostile for years to come. Infinite Scroll is a podcast produced, presented, and co-written by me, Lauren Meisner, for Centennial World. This episode was researched and co-written by Annabelle Ben-David. Editing is by Danny Fennick. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.